Information evening. My name is Neil Gregory. I am the head of Year 10 at college. Through our all mobile phones are presentation. So we begin in prayer in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, our Creator, help all our young people to know their vocation in life and assist them to prepare for it. For your greater glory and the well-being of all your people, call many to be the ministers of your love, justice and peace. Give to them grace to respond generously and persevere faithfully in caring for this world and its people. Help us all to recognise the presence of your wisdom in the youth of today and to encourage them in their response to you. St. Martin Champagne, pray for Mary, our mother, pray for Mary, member, pray for Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. I thought I would start with some information about what our Year 10 students have been doing in regards to careers so far this year. Careers have been the focus of their pastoral care lessons. We've looked at the world of work, personal interests, personalities, abilities, what they are and matching them to jobs, discovering career options on the government's My Future and Job Outlook websites. This year we've introduced interviews for all our Year 10 students with our careers counsellor, Mrs. White. These interviews cover traineeships, apprenticeships, universities, TAFE options and career building. Representatives from the police, Defence Force, JCU, CQU will visit during semester 2, and my intention is to get parents and community representatives to speak to the boys about their careers and probably more importantly their life experiences. Finally, I encourage all students to explore the SAC Careers and Pathways Weekly, the latest up-to-date information on careers. This evening you'll hear from our Director of Studies, Mr. Lance Helms, discussing the process for selecting senior subjects, ATAR, QCE and Pathways. There will be opportunity for you to speak with heads of department on various subjects offered in the senior school. I will now invite our college principal, Mr. Matthew Brown, forward for his address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gregory. Parents and young men of saints, first of all, but I thank you for your attendance at this important evening tonight. Certainly the transition for me as a parent, I found this night probably just as important as the Year 6 to Year 7 information night, because it is a stage in your son's academic journey where significant changes are going to be made and significant choices have to be made. So can I thank you here, thank you for your presence here this evening, and I know having looked at the PowerPoint presentation that Mr. Helms and others have put together, I think you'll find it quite informative. This is only 3 points I'd like to make for you this evening, or for you to consider this evening. And the first one I think is it's important for the parents to hear this, but also the students of Saints in Year 10 going into Year 11. And that is when it comes round to selecting the courses that you wish to study in 2020 and 2021. I guess there are 3 pieces of information or 3 pieces of advice, and you'll probably hear this through the course of the evening. But the first one is, and I've told my own children the same thing, is to pick something that you are good at. Because 2 years is a long time to do a subject that you have little or no interest in. So I would discard hearing that particular subjects scale really well, and that if you do a particular subject, you're guaranteed university entry or work positions. And I would think purely about something that you have a real passion for and you're good at. The second thing, as I said, is something you like, something also, as I said, that you are good at. Again, there's no point in picking physics because you think physics might be a course that'll score well, but you don't like science. It's a complete waste of time. And then the third thing I would say to you around course selections is please don't pick the course that you think you're going to enjoy with your mates, or pick it because your friends are doing it, or pick it because you think a particular teacher is teaching it. The nature of education and schools are that people change jobs. Teachers come and go, and to select a subject based on the hope or the expectation a particular teacher will take that course is quite foolhardy. So again, the main piece of advice for the students is pick something you're good at, pick something that you like, and don't pick based on the selections of friends or on the potential of a teacher that you really like that may be teaching you. The second point I would like to make to you this evening is just outlining some of the courses that we will be offering around the area of VET, vocational education. A number of years ago, and it has grown in the last few years, but the school are dedicated to offering 4 different VET courses. 2 of them in the NTAD building. There's also hospitality and there's also fitness. In 2020, and I think it's really important that you hear this from the outset, your sons will have those 4 VET choices to choose from, and there won't be any others. And I know there's been some discussion around other schools offering other different packages, boys going out to TAFE all day Wednesday, and those sort of opportunities. Currently in 2020 that won't be and hasn't never been part of the Saints curriculum. And there are 2 main reasons for that. The first one, obviously, our timetable is built around the subject offerings and level of expertise of our teachers. So for us to try and flood the timetable of the curriculum with VET courses, we haven't necessarily got the training or the qualifications for some of the courses that boys may be interested in. And secondly, we'd like to keep our numbers at Saints as far as student population at a certain number, which restricts the number of courses available on any given line on the timetable. So I'm not saying that to dissuade anybody from continuing at Saints in Year 11, quite the opposite. But I think, and I spoke to a number of staff today, I thought it was vitally important that we put that on the table. So talk around a school-based apprenticeship is not on the cards for 2020. And I know some students and some parents have been looking at that. There's been other TAFE courses that are looking at being offered that students here are interested in. And one of the reasons we're gearing away from some of those additional TAFE courses is the expectation is that a student will miss at least 1 full day of school, if not 2 a week. And to expect anybody to be successful missing 20 or 40% of work is foolhardy. And all the research and stats will tell you that it is vitally important that students are in front of teachers, the teachers are in front of students. And to expect a good result for students who would miss up to 20% of their school day is not something that we would entertain here at Saints. So for some students and families, there may be a decision to make, and I've had this conversation with a couple of families already, and it's a matter of weighing up whether you want to start a school-based apprenticeship or whether you want to continue your schooling in 2020 and 2021 at St Augustine's. And my hope would be that the holistic education that's offered here at St Augustine's would mean that whilst it may take 6 months or so off a young man's apprenticeship, at the end of year 12, the values, the opportunities, the experience, the mateship, everything that's offered at Saints, that both the tangible and intangible, would be enough to ensure that your son graduates as a Saints man at the end of 2021. So again, the first 2 points, we want students to pick something they're good at, something they really enjoy, and never do it on the whim of a friend or a particular teacher. Secondly, the VET courses that are offered will remain at those 4, and that school-based apprenticeships won't be on the table for 2020. And I guess the third point that I would make is, for the students again, once you pick these courses, and you pick something that you're good at, and you pick something that you like, it's just important then not to narrow your scope on what you want to do when you leave school. That all you need to do is look at getting the best possible result that you can. I know as a parent of a student in Year 12, my son is in Sydney and only flew back yesterday, but he had always through his junior schooling, he thought he wanted to become a teacher, which we obviously supported whichever way he wanted to go. He decided halfway through Year 10 that merchant banking was for him, and I don't know where that idea came from, and then he was going to do a Bachelor of Accountancy at the conclusion of his Year 12. We spoke over the holidays and he decided that accountancy wasn't going to be for him. But I was happy that my wife and I, and the school that he is at, always just reinforced to him, you don't make life choices necessarily in Year 10, Year 11 or Year 12. That you simply do the best you can whilst you're at school, and who knows what doors would open. And again, another story I'll share with you briefly, an ex-student of mine in Sydney who was a boarding student from a town in Western New South Wales. he would say, and his family would say, that he was well known in the town, perhaps by the police more often than not, for misbehaving, nothing serious, but a lot of misdemeanours. He came to the school, and the decision was made that he wanted to look at doing something in business, and for that he needed an ATAR, which we'll hear more about shortly, of about 70. He decided to really knuckle down in Year 12. He had a light bulb moment. He liked his sport, and he had a serious injury and ended up working a little bit harder in his books. And ultimately he finished with an ATAR in, I think it was about 94. So he jumped sort of 24 places or rankings than what he anticipated when he started at the beginning of Year 11. And so he changed all of his thought process because of the scoring. Not whilst he liked business, he went on and did a number of other things, and he's currently I think he's working in welfare and match day promotions for the Hawthorn Football Club in Victoria. And again, if you had have asked him if he was sitting in this room tonight, would he be in 6 years' time living in Melbourne, a kid from Griffith who had a passion for rugby league and nothing else? Would he be now living in Victoria, working in another code, doing something in public relations largely? And the answer would certainly be no. So again, I would remind students and parents, you don't need to tunnel vision what you're going to do. And I think whilst this new system that seems to be frightening a few people up here, which I can completely understand, it's a system not unfamiliar to someone like myself who've worked in both the ACT and the New South Wales systems. And from what I've learned a lot about the new system in Queensland, it really is a mishmash of both, where there'll be a number of assessments done internally, and then there will be an external exam. And whilst the external exam may be something that there's a little bit of fear and trepidation around, for me I think it's probably a very fair way of doing it. That all of the students, both male and female in 2021, that are doing the courses that you decide to do, will all do the same paper on the same day. Teachers won't have access to it prior. Teachers will only be able to have a look at it after the event, and it means that there's a level playing field there. So finally, can I thank you again for your attendance tonight. You'll see a number of empty desks. I'd also like to take time now to thank the number of teaching staff, and there is a number that have stayed back tonight to help you and your sons make an informed choice, and I wish you the very best of luck in this selection process. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Lance Helms, Director of Studies. Very good to see so many of you here tonight. I will try to be as brief as possible, but I'm sure you can understand there's a lot of information that we need to impart to you this evening. So if it does tend to linger and your stomach is a little growly, I just encourage you to persevere. We will try to be done with this by 6:15. It may be 6:30, but let's see how we go. All right. So first, we'll slide up there. You will see a bunch of questions that hopefully the young men have been asking. Oh, sorry, I don't have it there. All right, but what they're going to be asking themselves. And you're going to hear these first two come up again and again from now until your sons are out of Year 10. Because that is the most important thing. We want these young men to really focus on what they are good at and what they like. The other series of questions that we're putting up here sometimes can be a little ethereal for Year 10 boys. I have no idea what I want to be. But we need to make sure that they are keeping their options open. And that's where parents need to be involved. That's where teachers are involved. And making sure that students are making the best possible choices that they can make at the beginning of Year 11 so that they are going to succeed and be where they need to be at the end of Year 12. So today I'm going to be explaining the process of what is being called the new QCE system. These young Year 10 boys are going to be the second group to go through this system. So parents, if you do have other children who are in Year 12 or older and have gone through the previous system, there are changes. So instead of referring to those things that have changed, I will just be talking about what the new processes are and what the new requirements are. With QCAA, which is the governing body, Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority, they are in charge of the curriculum. They tell us what it is that we are supposed to teach. Now, at the end of Year 12, it is their job then to reward students with whatever certificates that they may have achieved while they were in Years 10, 11, and 12. At our school, we focus only on 11 and 12. Okay? So, first of all, there's the senior statement. The senior statement lists the subjects and the marks on exit for all the subjects that the students attempted in year 11 and 12. It's like one giant report card. On the whole, it's not a very useful certificate. Employers do not want to see that. What they may want to see is the second one, the Queensland Certificate of Education. That certificate says that your son graduated high school. If your son does not have that certificate, it means he did not pass enough of his subjects for the state to recognize that he passed high school. So there's no graduation certificate. The third one down, the Queensland Certificate of Individual Achievement, is for a select group of students. We will probably only have 3 students doing that, so I'm not going to get into great detail with that. Parents of those 3 students have already been informed of the process. So forgive me if I don't go into great detail here. And the last one, Vocational Education and Training Certificates. We call these VET courses. Mr. Brennan referred to the 4 courses that we offer. So within the 2-year course of study, we are giving the students ample time in order to complete modules for the 4 different certificates that we offer. All right, now there is a little bit of a difference. Now QCA has not wanted to print certificates, it's up to the school. So just know that is sort of in the process of being removed from the senior education profile as we're sending it to the students at the end of year 12, but it is included in the report, just so we're aware of that. All right, so for a QCE, how do we get these things? There's a lot of information on this slide, and I don't want to read it to you, but I want to give you a minute or so to read through that. Okay, the first paragraph focuses on literacy, numeracy, and 20 points. In order to get a QCE, students must pass at least 1 unit of a mathematics course, 1 unit of an English course, and pass 20 unit credits. So those are the basics in order to be eligible for a QCE. So when it says a minimum standard for general subjects or applied subjects, that's a C-. Okay, so we're getting away from sound achievement, if you've heard that before, but a C-. So once a student is given a grade of a D+, that is not achieving a minimum standard. If it is in a VET course, it means that they have demonstrated competency. Now the final paragraph refers to pathways, because what the government is doing is recognizing that there are various pathways that are important in society. We recognize that not all students would like to go to university, and not all students want to go directly into the workforce. So what we try to do through our set plan process with parents and students is gauge the direction the student wants to go, and hopefully that marries with the direction the parents want the student to go. We will talk about how we can go through those little trials in a little bit later. Okay? All right, so with the new QCE system, what we're looking at is that in year 11, students will do units 1 and 2 in a general subject. If they pass both units, they will always have those credits. So anytime they pass a unit, they get the credit and it goes toward the 20. However, in the new system, should they fail a unit, they will never be able to get that credit back. In the old system, they were allowed to. So it's very important, in order to get those 20 credit points, that students are choosing the correct subjects at the beginning of year 11 and not giving things necessarily a go just to see how it can go, and by the time they get to year 12, realize that they're way too many credits short. So it's very important when you are speaking to your English teachers and your math teachers especially, that you are selecting the correct course. Instead of waiting an entire year to see how they're doing, it may be worthwhile only waiting for 1 semester. But we will be in contact with you about those things. All right, third example. For example, if a student were to fail English in year 11 but pass year 12, now in the new system, he would only receive 2 credit points. Okay? So a unit creates to a credit. You pass the unit, you get a credit point. Once you have the credit point, it can never be taken away. Once you've lost the credit, you can never get it back. So it could be very possible that the student were to choose the incorrect courses for his course of study, that by the end of year 11, we know he will have to do an outside certificate course, say in diving or in life saving, in order to get his QCE credits up to get a QCE by the end of year 12. All right, so I can't stress this enough, that from this point until the end of year 11, even beyond when we do set plans, even beyond when you're turning in subject selections, by the beginning of year 11, that is basically our deadline we're shooting for. Please be in the correct class. Okay, at Saints, we offer 3 different types of subjects. We offer general subjects, used to be called OP subjects or authority subjects. Those are the ones that get you in gear for university. With the initial subject selection guide, when we were asking for initial interest, you would have noticed that on the left side of the page, all of those subjects were general. Then on the third column, it started with apply. All of those subjects, right, are gearing you mainly for the workforce. Now, as you're choosing a combination of subjects, it doesn't have to be one or the other. There can be a balance through both. So just keep that in mind. You do not have to have all general or all applied. We're looking for a breadth in what we're studying, something that is going to bring your sons the success that they need. And there is also the vet certificates that we talked about. All right, so to be a little more specific about the certificates that we offer, and I won't go into them too much later, but we do offer 2 certificates in INTAD. One is a certificate 1 in construction, which is worth 3 QCE points. We offer a certificate 2 in engineering pathways, which is likened to metalwork. It is worth 4 QCE points. We offer the certificate 2 in kitchen operations, which is worth 4 QCE points. And we offer through Binnacle the RTO certificate 3 in fitness. It is worth 8 QCE points. Now, even though it is a certificate, 8 QCE points is the same value as physics and chemistry put together for QCE points. There is a lot of time that goes into it. It doesn't necessarily have the academic rigor of physics or chemistry, but there is a lot of work that goes into it. So please be mindful of that when you're making these decisions. Certificate does not necessarily mean easy. There is theory work that goes along with it, and there is a lot of work that can go along with it. All right, the list of general subjects you might have seen. And again, these are mainly for preparation for university, but they're good for just a holistic education. Applied subjects. You will see the 6 that we are offering there. Now notice that we have essential English and essential mathematics listed here. I do need to tell you that those 2 subjects in the applied list, there is an external assessment that goes along with it. It is worth 25% of the overall grade, but I need you to be aware of that. So the new system is asking students, if they are going to get a QCE, that they need to be literate and numerate in order to get that certificate. So they've kind of upped the ante with those classes. So please be aware of that. The other thing that is necessary is for a student to get a QCE, he must have passed his English class. That's units 3 and 4. So what is essentially year 12 work? Doesn't matter which English that he is in. Essential, general English, or literature. A pass must be had in 3 and 4. Okay? Oh, sorry. I just made a mistake. I jumped to ATAR. Can you forget just what I said about QCE? You just have to pass 1 semester for that. I'll get to the ATAR later about English. I jumped the gun on that. All right, so backing up, those 2 essential classes, mathematics and English, will have an external component. The others don't. Okay? So no external exam. All right, I've mentioned that. Now, all the subjects that we offer at this school go toward the 20 points for a QCE. But we need you to understand there's also a component called the completion of core. And that means students must stay in a course of study from Unit 1 to Unit 4, ensuring that they pass Units 3 and 4, and create 12 credit points. So for example, if they take English and physics and chemistry and have passed Units 1, 2, 3, and 4, there are the 12 points for completed core. It doesn't matter really what the other points have come from the 20. Okay? But there's our 12 for completed core. If a student were to fail 1 and 2, Units 1 and 2 in English, but pass Units 3 and 4, there's 2 points that go toward completed core. Because he's completed the subject from 1 to 4, but only has 2 points to go toward the 12. Should a student be in English and pass Units 1 and 2, but fail 3 and 4, that's 0 points for completed core because that student did not pass Units 3 and 4. Okay? Now, part of my job is to monitor every student's progress in this. I'm not expecting parents to monitor this. At the end of semester 1, we send home letters if we are concerned that a student is not necessarily in the right class, if there is going to be a problem with achieving QCE. There are going to be no surprises for you in year 12 unless your son has totally dropped the ball in year 12. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'm trying to give you the information to know how, I guess, the best path in selecting the best subjects for your son, because essentially, parents, it is your choice. You sign off on it, and hopefully your sons are going to be happy with it, but we need to make sure that they're making realistic choices as well. All right, so that's the part of the QCAA. Now, in the past, the QCAA actually put the OP score together, and if you've heard of that, that was the tertiary entrance score. QCAA does not do that anymore. Their job is curriculum and making sure the QCE is put in place and getting that information. They've washed their hands of tertiary entrance now. That goes to QTAC. And QTAC has developed the Queensland ATAR, which they just call the ATAR. Okay? Now, at the moment, they've been telling us that the ATAR is going to be used around the state, it will be applied across the nation. No big surprises there. But they haven't been able to tell us how it's going to be calculated. So I can't tell you how it's going to be calculated. I can give you some information about it, what we know, but until our current year 11s graduate, we will have no idea how subjects are scaled in Queensland. Okay? Sorry, it may not be what you want to hear, but that's the reality. So we will have, you're the second group going through this. The third group will be going through subject selections before we find out about scaling with the ATAR. What I encourage you to do, though, is not really think too much about the ATAR. It's just a number. How other students do across the state is really out of your control, young men. What you are in control of is how well you apply yourself to each one of your assessments in year 11 and 12. That you have control of. You have control of the subjects that you choose in conjunction with your parents. That you have control of. But thinking the ATAR is the be-all and end-all of your life, it is not. It is merely a number that ranks all students who were enrolled in year 7 when you were in year 7 and puts you in a scaling device. That's all. Now, it will be used as the main numbers get into a university. Okay? But it's not going to be the only way you can get into a university. Universities, and I don't mean to offend anyone if someone's working at a university, but on the whole, universities want your money. So that means they need to have bodies in the classroom. And if you're interested in going to their university but don't quite meet the requirements, you're probably going to help you find a way to get into that university and meet the requirements, even though it may be an institution in, for an extra 6 months or an extra year. Okay? So please, just keep that in mind. ATAR, merely a number, and in comparison to what everybody else is doing, that is out of your control. All right, in order to be ATAR eligible, you must have at least 4 general subjects. So for students who know definitely they are not going to go to university, they don't need to take 4 general subjects. Okay? But if students are wanting to go into the more competitive degrees, such as engineering, medicine, dentistry, vet, physiotherapy, it's in your best interest to ensure that you are taking 5 general subjects. Because even though PCAT cannot tell us how they are scaling courses, we know scaling is going to happen. And if we look at other states, we can have a pretty good guess about which subjects will scale better than others. But that scaling can be very, very individual. All right, so there's basically how the ATAR is done. And there's where it says English mandatory. To get an ATAR, you must pass your English class. That's in units 3 and 4. Doesn't matter which one. Okay? So even if it's applied English, you get your ATAR with that. Okay? Also, which is a little different from other states, the English mark is not necessarily calculated in your ATAR. Okay? So if you were to take 6 general subjects, including English, and English is your lowest subject, it won't be calculated. The other 5 will. Okay? But you still have to pass the English. Okay? So we'll try to keep everyone on track with that. Okay? So is it necessary? These are basic questions that students need to apply to themselves, not in year 11, but from this point in year 10. I've had many students say to me, oh, it'll be different next year, sir. And the only difference is they're a year older. But they're still having the same work ethic. So we need to be realistic. And parents, you need to monitor this at home. What are the students doing in order to achieve what they say their goals are? All right? So, are there commitments outside of school that will negatively impact study time? These include sport, work, girlfriends, Fortnite, or any other game that goes along. And parents, I know you would hate to think that your sons would ever lie to you, and I don't think they would see it as lying, because self-preservation is merely self-preservation. What my parents don't know won't hurt them. But if our boys are staying up until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning because they're being allowed to have devices in their bedrooms, and they'll say, oh, I'm studying, they could have been studying for a couple of minutes that hour. So I encourage you to monitor how they are studying at home. Dining room table, great place to do it. Have a place to leave all phones and devices in the living room. No, you need to study, do it out here. We'll try to be quiet and have some balance. But parents on the whole do want to trust their sons. And sons want to be trustworthy. But sometimes the screen provides too much distraction. And if you're nearby, you're a little more conscientious about how they focus. But I'll leave that to you. All right, the interest options page, many of you would have seen this. This year, the group did quite well, even though they waited till the last minute to turn in everything. We had over 90% of students respond to classes they would be interested in. Okay? From that, what I've been able to do is create lines, and you'll get a hard copy of this before you go later. Notice I go very quickly over that because it's not the be-all and end. Oh, sorry about that. All right? We are going to go through now, once you get that sheet, what you really need to do. And more than anything, it is to have conversations at home. More than anything. But I'm only going to give you a short little timeline in order to do this. So we had 90% of students turn in what their interests were, which was fabulous. Last year was only 74% or something. All right, so tentative subject lines have been created. And here it is today. So I'm not sure if you can see my colors very well or not. All right? But you will see that I color-coded this for everybody, and I want you to be aware of why. All right. So what everyone is going to do is choose one from each of the 6 lines. One subject. But sometimes that can be disastrous because on one line, you want to do 2 or 3 subjects, and on another line, you don't want to do any. Okay? That's why these are tentative lines. All right? You will be choosing in English and math. But that's why we've created the wish list on the side. Because now that you've seen what one subject may be up against another, and if it's only offered once, you may say, oh, sure, I'm very hopeful that you'll be able to give me something else. So, for example, accounting and visual art, both on line 3. I want to do both! So, circle one of them, and on another line 2, for example, whatever it may be, write the other. You're not disadvantaging one or advantaging one by which one do I circle. Doesn't make any difference. I take both into account to see what I can split. If there is enough interest, then we can move lines. Music, for example, last year shifted lines and was able to run. Okay? But we do need to make sure that we have the numbers to run a class as well. So please keep that in mind. If I go back a little bit and I show you one, I don't know if you can see information and communication technologies. You see it on the right side, 3rd line down. You'll see that that is in orange. That means in all likelihood it is going to be a combined class with next year's year 12s. Anything in orange, there is the possibility that 11s and 12s will be together next year. It's not definite, but that's based on initial interest. Only 2 students were interested in doing information and communication technology. We cannot run a class on its own for 2 students. So that's what I need you to be aware of. If, for example, with visual art, we have 15 students wanting to do it, we will be able to run a year 12 visual art separately from a year 11 visual art. But I just can't make those promises yet, not knowing what people are going to choose. Okay? So please just keep that in mind. Okay, so from this is going to be submitted to me later in the week. So gentlemen, you have until Friday, just keep that in mind, Friday, in order to bring in this first one. Then a finalized structure will be created. That will be made available to students, hopefully before they go home to camp. Okay? So that's the goal. The parents will be able to see these lines, create a battle plan before their sons come back from camp, and then have those conversations about what subjects would probably be best for their sons. Now that's our goal. But in order for that to be done by the end of week 3, I need this back by the end of week 2. So I hope you can understand the importance of that. Okay? So once that has been sent home, we will be contacting you or asking you to contact us to set up set plan interviews. Now we did something a little differently this year. We had Miss Light who was talking with careers individually with year 10s. She had actually started the set plan process with your sons. So every year 10 young man should have gone through this process and should have this plan. But we are aware of the vortex of the bag and that things can go missing. And so if you get home tonight and your son is not able to produce his set plan, he needs to come into the office tomorrow morning and we will give him a fresh copy. But what we're hoping for is that this has been a useful device for you as you're trying to get your son geared for what he may do when he leaves year 12. Okay? So just be aware that that is going to happen. So what we're going to be asking, these two forms together, returned by next Friday. Okay? Now, these are not your final decisions. Just keep that in mind. There's still plenty of time to make changes. However, if there is not enough interest in a particular subject, you may find it is not on the next form. So I need you to be aware of that. Okay? It is at our discretion to ensure that we have the human resources and the final resources to run classes. Okay? So again, tentative lines. All right, so what should families do? Go through that subject selection booklet. Now, all the boys received one last term. If they have misplaced that as well, you are able to find the subject information booklet online on the portal. So please avail yourself of that if your son is unable to locate it. We will not reprint those for the boys. All right? If for some reason a young man did not get one, we will go through with the homeroom teachers and see what happened with that. Okay? So we want you to talk to the teachers. Parents, you've seen your son's report card. Those grades are indicative of how they are setting themselves up for year 11. If they are in mathematics, mathematical methods prep and making an A, probably a good idea to do mathematics, coping well. But if your son is making a C- in mathematics, that may not be the math class that's best for him. When it goes along with the ATAR and saying, oh, but if I take the harder math class, it will scale better. Yes, it will. But you still have to do well enough in the difficult subject for it to scale the same as doing well in a subject that won't scale as well. QTAC has one comparison on the website that I found, and that was mathematical methods. A mid-B will scale about the same way as general mathematics as an A. So a student is making a C in mathematical methods, but could make an A in general maths. They're telling us that general maths will scale better at an A than methods at a C. So please just keep that in mind, okay? If you want to see how it goes, especially in English and maths, until the end of the year, please do so. Keep your options open. Sometimes the penny just drops. And a young man can start performing very well in a subject where he had been performing so well. But other than English and maths, I need you to be very, very conscious about making the best selections for your son, given at this point. Because we are talking about whether classes run or whether they don't. Whether they become full and then you're on the waiting list and you have to do something else. Right? We just need to know what we're in for. So there's the main thing about the ATAR that I want you to consider. The ones that really will make a difference with your ATAR are the ones you are good at. Okay? You're making A's across the board. Doesn't matter necessarily if you're in mathematical methods or in general maths. You're going to do very, very well. So don't think it's the subject. Think about the time that you are going to devote and the joy that you're going to get from the study. Now, gentlemen, how many of you, when you go home after tonight, and you're going to say, yes, we get to have dinner and then I get to study for 2 hours? You're looking forward to that? If you're doing this, rethink how many general subjects you want to take, because that's what it's going to take. You're going to have a dedicated study plan. All right, so the set plan process. On some desks behind me, I have the first week or so of dates and times that we're making available for set plan interviews. One of the joys I get is to meet all the parents through the set plan review process. But sometimes I know that isn't necessarily the best thing for some of the parents, especially if they would rather see someone else. Mr. Gregory has volunteered to do a few set plans, have you? Yes? Okay. But on the whole, I would like to be doing them. But I can understand if for whatever reason you're saying, oh, I'm not so comfortable with Mr. Helms, he has that accent thing going and it really bothers me. All right, whatever it is, when you're making your appointment, through Julie Storrs, we'll give you that information later as well. When you're making your appointment, just say, oh, can we have it with Mr. Gregory, please? And that'll be fine. Otherwise, she will just try to slot the time in with you seeing me. But if you're gung-ho, and after you've actually seen the lines and have some information, you think, oh, no, this is looking pretty good. We've already talked about this at home. Let's go ahead and make a time. Feel free to do that. We're starting out that timing process to create the set plan. So, on Friday, you've turned in your lines, you've turned in this form. That's what we'll be discussing. We'll be discussing that your aspirations that you put on the plan, young men, and the subjects that you've chosen actually match with what your report card says. Right? How's your ability? How do you apply yourself? We just need to make sure you're in the best place for your success. All right, you will be getting information about how to access your learning account. All right, it will have your LUI number on it, all this information that you'll get a little more information about in your set plan. But basically, everything is going electronic now. You're going to be able to monitor your own account. All right, My Future is just another one of the websites that you can use to look at careers as well. And then QTAC. Now, QTAC is trying to make everything go online as well. And they have still not given us all the information that we need, not just the scaling for the ATAR, but there's a lot of information not there. What I would encourage you to do is, if you have an idea of what course of study you want to do in 11 and 12, where you want to go in uni, what sort of degree you want to pursue, get on the QTAC site, get on that individual university site, and find out what their requirements are going to be. That's a this week sort of plan. Okay, that has not already been done. Because if it is a competitive university, like UQ, and it says to get into this course of study, you need to be taking specialist maths. Well, if you really want to do that course of study, you have to take specialist maths, and you know what you're in for. So those individual universities will let you know what's there, but they will also give you an idea of adjustment factors. Now, in the past, they were called bonus points. Okay? I cannot tell you through QTAC what will do what. In the past it was, if you've done Math C or if you've done language, you will get extra ranking points. And all that was done. Okay? But now the ATAR is different from the OP and the rank. We're not sure how that's done. Okay? So when we're talking adjustment factors, universities have the discretion of adjusting anyone's ATAR. QTAC says, here's your ATAR. The university will say, well, we're going to add a couple of points to that because you took this and you took that. But ATAR has not published that yet. But your individual universities may. Should you take subjects because you might get an extra point? Only if you like them and you're good at them. Don't let that be a reason for taking a subject. Oh, but I might get an extra adjustment factor on that. If you've lowered your ATAR so much because you're not very successful in that subject, just to get a little bump up, it's not in your best interest. So keep that in mind. All right? What they are trying to do is to reward people to do specialist mathematics, because lots of kids do not want to do 8 periods of maths in a week. They want them to do languages. All right? So there is a different sort of push that way, not necessarily in the best interest of every student. Now, in the QTAC guide, you will also see things about prerequisites. So that means they really want you to have that in order before you can enroll. Most of them are as a sound, but you can see what they're here. It's essential, or assumed knowledge, or it's recommended. Not every high school in Queensland can offer every subject that might be recommended. Just keep that in mind. Okay? We're very fortunate where we are. For the size of 750 students, we have a very good offering of subjects. And for our more competitive courses, such as specialist maths, physics, chemistry, biology, and English, and mathematics. Those 6 very, very, very possibly good scaling subjects. If you love them and you're good at them, That's generally all the universities will think of at the most of being recommended. It doesn't generally go beyond those. But for anyone to think that they're going to take all those 6 subjects and have much of a social life is a little bit of a dream. Okay? So each one of those subjects you need to be looking at studying probably 3 to 4 hours each subject per week. So you see how that makes your life a little busy with study? All right. So we do want you to think going beyond this idea of taking 6 general subjects. If you are a straight A student and you want to do 6 general subjects, great. We're not going to try to talk you out of it. But if you're a C to B student and you want to do 6 general subjects, I'm going to be asking you about how fun that seems to study. Okay, here's the final note. What you've heard before. The parents, on the whole, you need to remember, you're going to have to live with these boys for 2 years. Day in, day out. If you have coerced them to take a subject that they definitely do not want to take, you may have 2 years of misery on your hands. As well, if you're giving the okay for them to take a subject you know they are not going to do well in. You know the work ethic. It is possible setting your son up for failure that way is going to make him miserable. So all I'm asking for you all to do is have candid conversations at home. Being honest about what the study habits are like, what the interests are. But when we do the set plan, my job is to help you create a 6-subject package that your son is going to enjoy and is going to bring him success and keep his options open when he leaves year 12. That's the goal. And if that means he wants to do 5 general subjects and then do sport and recreation so he can just be a boy and not have to study too much with that subject, then that's probably a great idea. Because he'll get 4 points for his QCE. He won't have to study as much and only focus on 5, and that's all the ATAR needs. So please do think about the balance. The old idea of having that 6th subject just in case really needs to go out the window. That 6th subject needs to complement your son's lifestyle as well as your lifestyle. If it's going to match with what they want to do in the future, wonderful. So tonight, before you leave, I have a pack of papers. Every student, okay, so if we have a family with twins, and I know we do, all right, if the boys aren't here, that parent can take 2, but everybody else, only 1 per student per family. Take a look at what is there and what is on offer. As I said, what is in orange is just tentative at the moment, could be a combined class. Don't let it dissuade you from picking it if you really want it. Because if we do have enough numbers to run it independently, we will. And that's what we would like, to run it independently if we can. All right? So please take one of these on your way out. If you are ready to set up an appointment, the desk has a date on them. Just put in your name and a contact number so we can contact you. And in the meantime, our heads of department, I know I see 4 there. All right, so from the top, they're going to make their way out here, and they can help answer some of your questions. All right, in the meantime, do not feel compelled to talk to them, but they are making themselves available. All right, I will also be here if you have any questions. I'm happy to clarify something. But let me again just reiterate: passing English must for the ATAR, not for the QCE. All right, that's just a 1 semester thing. All right, thank you for being attentive. I hope I didn't put you to sleep too much. All right, I'll be over here in this room with you a little bit. All right, thank you.